Hello everyone, welcome back to the Budget Sportsman. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. It sure means a lot to me that you're here with me today. On today's video, we are going to be taking a look at this budget-friendly trail camera from a company that you've probably never heard of called Dr. Meter. Now, whenever I get a product for free, I want to make sure that you have full disclosure, and so that's what I'm doing right now. A few months ago, Dr. Meter reached out to me, asked me if I'd be willing to take a look at their trail camera. Of course, I absolutely love trail cameras, and I always enjoy checking out new ones, especially ones that are budget friendly, and so of course I said yes. Outside of them sending me the camera for free, I'm not sponsored by them in any way. They're not paying me or telling me what to say, and you have my word that you're getting my fair and unbiased review of this camera, both the good and the bad. With that being said, I do need to also mention that this is actually the second camera that Dr. Meter sent me. The first one had a couple of very small idiosyncrasies. There were some pictures that came out really weird. It's hard to explain. I'll throw it up on screen. And then I had a couple that came out really black. Dr. Meter suggested that I reset the camera. I did that. It seemed like it helped some, but there were still just a couple of issues. They suggested that it could be due to maybe batteries that weren't putting out enough power during cold weather, that kind of thing. I didn't really feel like that was the issue, but there's a possibility that that was the cause. However, Dr. Meter did send me a new camera that has absolutely had zero problems whatsoever. So take that for what it's worth in your decision-making process. Dr. Meter handled the problem flawlessly, in my opinion, as far as customer support. But again, keep in mind that they were wanting a review out of me. So we'll just throw that out there, and you can do with that information what you want. What I want to do now is dive into the camera, give you some of my thoughts on different categories about the camera itself. And the first category that I want to talk about is the price. Now, right now at the time of this video, you can get this camera on Amazon for basically $60, $59, $60. Now, obviously, in the trail camera world, prices can range everything from $28 for a Tasco trail camera at Walmart all the way up to several $100s for cell cams and cameras with solar on them and high quality and amazing image quality, all kinds of things like that. And there's quite a variety, and you have to decide for yourself where you fall on that spectrum. For me, I'd rather spend less for a trail camera and have more of them. And maybe they have a little bit less image quality, but it's also less money down the drain if it happens to get lost, stolen, etc. For me, this camera finds a really happy medium at that $60 price point. Yes, it's twice the price which you can get one for at Walmart. However, I think you're getting probably twice your money's worth. I think maybe even more than twice your money's worth. I think for the price, you're getting a lot of really great features. So keep watching, see what you think about the features, and see if you think it's worth $60. But for me, I think it's a pretty good deal for $60. Okay, so the next category is the build and the layout and design, the exterior features of this camera. Now, while there are a few downsides to this camera, overall, I really like it. I've really been enjoying using it. When it comes to size, it's certainly not the smallest camera on the market, but it still maintains a fairly small and compact size, easy to throw in your coat pocket or your backpack and haul out into the woods. You're going to notice on the front, it's got a camo pattern, while the back has a solid color. The strap is pretty standard strap, although this is more of a locking buckle rather than a spring-loaded cinch strap that's on a lot. I would probably prefer the regular spring-loaded cinch strap, but it's not a big deal at all. One of the things you're going to notice is that it does have a 1/4-20 tripod thread on the bottom. And another thing that is really interesting about this camera in the realm of budget-friendly cameras is that it has these two side-facing sensors, as well as one in the middle. Now, I tried reading in the manual to find out exactly how they work. I couldn't find a lot of information, but the best that I can kind of figure out and understand is that when these side sensors are picking up movement from an animal, it's going to basically wake the camera up. Not necessarily take a picture, because obviously it wouldn't be in the middle, but it's going to wake the camera up, get it ready to go, and then when this center sensor senses movement, it's going to go ahead and trigger that camera and get you a perfect picture with that animal right where it needs to be. And I've been really pleased with the images, and as far as getting animals in frame, this camera's done really well. Now, before we open up the door and show you the inside, I have to give you the big negative of this camera, and that is that there's no way to use this camera with a Python lock. The cable style lock, a master lock, so forth. There is a gap up here in the front which looks like it could be made for it, but it's way too small for any a cable lock that I've ever used. I've tried rigging this up with some other styles of locks, and just make do, and I really couldn't make it happen. Obviously, there are locks in the market that go through the strap portion back here, and that would certainly work with this. But if you're like me and you're used to using a Python lock, that's not going to work out with this camera. And for me, that's a really big deal because I'm moving more and more to running my cameras on public land, and I just would hate to see one of them go missing. So for me, that's a big deal. When it comes to the next thing I'm going to show you, I love this camera. You have a latch over here and the door opens, but one thing you're going to notice is that the camera does not move. There is no electronics, no batteries, nothing on this door. It's just a piece of plastic on a hinge. Everything, all of your sensors, all of your cameras, all of your menu, all the batteries, all stay right here, which makes it really super easy and convenient to set this thing up. Because one of the great advantages of this camera is that when you turn it on, you have a live preview here on your screen. And some cameras I've seen, they have a live preview on the screen, but the camera is on the door that flips open. So in order to see the screen, the camera's now facing the wrong direction. Whereas this one is on the tree, the camera's pointed the right direction, and you can go ahead and look at the camera. Now there is one little issue with that. When I walk up to this camera to try to see the live preview, oftentimes my head is in front of the camera. So you kind of have to sort of stand at an angle at the side or try to sit below it or above it to get the right preview. The other thing you can do is you can just actually push a button here to take a picture or walk in front of it when it's on, get it to take a picture, and then go ahead and preview that image on the screen. I really love this screen. This is the first camera I've ever had that has a screen on it, and I think to get or a screen like this where you can preview images and so forth. And I think for $60, that's a really good feature to have on a $60 trail camera. Now, one last thing I want to show you about this camera is the battery tray. Now, of course, because the batteries are on one side and the camera on the other, like a lot of cameras, this has a tray that's up inside of here. And if you push this button here, the tray falls down. And sometimes it falls all the way out, but it actually has this catch. There, you see there, it fell all the way out. It actually has a catch about halfway down to keep your batteries from just falling out on the ground. Then you can pull it out and replace your batteries and slide it back in. I really like this design. The latch seems very robust and easy to push to get those batteries out. I really like the design of this camera. Again, other than the fact that it doesn't allow you to use a Python lock, I really like the overall build and design of this Dr. Meter camera. The next category that I want to cover about the trail camera is the user interface and the features. Now, I'm not going to go over every option in the menu and go over every single feature that this camera has. I just want to give you some of the highlights and some of the things that I find interesting or noteworthy about the camera. One thing that I already mentioned is this big screen up front, and the big screen combined with a logical button layout, I feel like gives it a very easy to use user interface. On the left side of the screen, you have an off, setup, and on slider switch. Right above that, you have a mode button. That mode button will cycle you through video preview, photo preview, your playback mode, and the actual settings. And then once you're in the settings, which I'll do that right now, I'll just hit that button about 3 times and I'm into my settings. And on the right side of the screen, you have an up arrow, a down arrow, and in the middle, you have an enter or OK button. With that up, down, and OK button, I find it extremely easy to navigate through the menu and change the settings. Now, one thing that I appreciate about this camera is that I feel like it has a very full-featured set of settings. I've reviewed a lot of budget trail cameras or used a lot of budget trail cameras that just simply don't give you a lot of options. You only have a few different presets. For instance, this camera gives you, when it comes down to video length, it gives you everything from 3 seconds all the way up to 10 minutes in very fine increments. When it comes down to the delay between events, such as pictures or videos, it actually gives you the option from everything from 5 seconds to 60 minutes with a lot of very fine intervals. So there's a lot that you can adjust and set. You can also come in here and you can adjust the sensitivity of the camera. So if you're getting a lot of false triggers, this has a high, medium, and low. And for me so far, I've been using it on high and I haven't had any problems, but I can certainly see myself getting into a place where maybe I'm getting a lot of false triggers and I would just lower down that sensitivity. So a lot of great options here within the settings. And now we get to the part that I'm sure you've all been waiting for, and that's talking about the image quality of this Dr. Meter camera. Now, I'm not going to try to convince you that the image quality is good or bad. I'm just going to show you the images and let you make a decision for yourself. One thing I'm going to point out to you, though, while you're looking at these images and videos, is that this camera is able to do 4K video. Now, just be aware, if you're not a camera guy, or a video guy that all 4K is not created equal. A lot of times we have this idea that if it's called 4K, there's going to be this amazing and beautiful footage. I think the 4K videos off of this camera are really good, but they're not necessarily what you might expect from 4K. Because of that, I thought, you know what, this might just be for advertising. The 4K and 1080 probably are no different. But I turned the camera down to 1080 and there is a noticeable difference. So while I wouldn't say that the 4K video is necessarily what you would expect from 4K, I would say that you want to make sure that you're using the 4K setting on this camera to get the best quality videos possible. One other thing I want to point out about the videos of the Dr. Meter camera is that they do record audio. And without trying to convince you one way or the other, I'm going to let you go ahead and hear what the audio sounds like from this camera without me touching it at all in my editing software. Okay, here I am about 4 or 5 feet back from the camera. I'm talking at a pretty normal conversation volume, certainly louder than I would be talking if I was hunting, certainly louder than most of the game animals are going to be just walking through the woods or what maybe the bird noises will be. So what's my conclusion on the Dr. Meter camera? Well, for $60, I think it's a pretty good value. The image quality and video quality isn't going to blow you away. However, I think you're getting on par or even above average image quality for a camera of this price point. The built-in screen that allows you to preview images and preview your shot, as well as a easy-to-use user interface and a full set of features, to me makes this a pretty good buy for a $60 camera. I don't know that I've tested any other cameras in this price range that has this many features. Again, my absolute biggest downside about this entire camera is the fact that it does not allow you to use a Python lock. So if you're a guy who has to be able to lock this camera up, then it's probably not for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of this camera down in the comments, or maybe if you've already tried it out, let me know what you think. And until next time, remember to get off YouTube and get outdoors into God's great creation.